Hello, everyone. It's Mystic Maude here to talk to you about this super full moon in Aries happening on Friday, September 29th, 2023 at 2:57 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Do remember to adjust for your location on planet Earth. It may be different if you are not on the West Coast of the United States. So just real quick, an announcement. I'm available for readings. If you are interested in what the full moon is activating in your own birth chart, in your own life, and picking cards to discover what's being activated, released, what you need to embrace, what the universe is asking from you, so on and so forth. You can DM me on Instagram, find me on my website, mysticmaude.com, or just email me, audrey@mysticmaude.com. I will put those links in the show notes. Okay, on with the show. So full moons are a time for illumination, realization, and release. Something that has come to fruition in the last couple of weeks or been brought to light, and something that needs to be released for our own personal evolution. The Libra sun in this full moon is opposing the moon in Aries. So basically the sun is shining the Libra themes of relationships and relating to others onto the Aries moon, which is where the changes need to be made, i.e. something that occurs in the areas of relationships, and I mean any type of relationship. You may experience some sudden conflict or plot twist or tension that's showing us something about how we need to assert our own will differently. The universe just wants us to get along and have healthy, satisfying relationships. So Libra is about balance, equality, diplomacy, and compromise, while Aries is about conflict, asserting one's own will, breaking through boundaries, and doing things on one's own terms. So while there's a time and place for single-mindedly going after what you want, in particular, this full moon is showing us our blind spots where our own self-concern is getting in the way of having healthy relationships and personal growth, how we care only or more for ourselves than others. That is to say, where we are being overly assertive with our will, or inflexible, or feeling the need to control other people in other situations, or where our obliviousness to the needs and wants of others are causing tension and strife in our lives. The Sabian symbol for 7 degrees of Aries, which, by the way, so it's at 6 degrees of Aries, and I can't remember the minutes, but whenever you have something that's over, say, 6 degrees, it's on its way to being 7 degrees, and that's considered 7 degrees. So the Sabian symbol for 7 degrees of Aries is a man successfully expressing himself in 2 realms at once. I'll say it again. A man successfully expressing himself in 2 realms at once. So what this means is it's the idea that we can see things from multiple different angles and they can both be true. Like we can exist in 2 different places in 2 different expressions, and they're both right and there's nothing wrong. It's kind of the opposite of duality. It's like, yes, like there's 2 things, but it's like where we can exist, make them exist as one, or believe that they're both true. So it's, say you're sitting across the table from someone and there's a vase of flowers in between you. So if someone asks you to describe to describe the vases, they're going to be different descriptions, but they're both going to be true and accurate descriptions of the vase. It's just that you're sitting from them from different angles at them, right? So among the planets being activated this full moon is Mars. I really think that Mars is kind of like the planet being activated because it's a full moon in Aries. So you always have to look at Mars whenever Aries is being activated. So Mars is actually in Libra, where the sun is, right? And Mars in Libra is conjunct the South Node. So where we're coming from, stuff that we're bringing into our past lives. So Mars is really activating like our South Node, like kind of our bad habits around relating to other people. Mars in Libra fights for equality and balance. It's making a tense quincunx, a tense aspect to Uranus, the planet of individualism and freedom, meaning we may encounter situations where we're feeling extra sensitive of being controlled or protecting our freedom, where we're like, don't hem me in, don't cage me in, or like, we're doing this my way. Uranus is like it's like lightning, and Mars is very fierce and fiery. So we may encounter those situations where we're feeling like like intimidated, or we need to protect our freedom a little bit more, or individualism, or that it's at stake, or it's also making, Mars is also making that same quincunx, but on the opposite side to the planet Neptune, which is the planet of illusion, delusion, confusion, idealism, and spirituality. This aspect can make us oblivious to other people's needs and wants, which can lead to tension and confusion about where the conflict might be coming from. Think of those of you who are being blindsided by conflict, like you're just going about your day and suddenly your friend sends you a text saying how angry they are about like something you said, and you just had no idea what happened. But anyways, Mars is also opposite the North Node and Chiron, the wounded healer. North Node is where we're evolving to. South Node is where we're coming from. So, and if a planet's conjunct the South Node, it's opposite the North Node as well. And it's next to Chiron, the wounded healer. It's our area of deepest wounding. And Chiron in Aries is wounding to our sense of who we are and our identity. So it's through others that we actually get to know ourselves more, our reaction, our reflection to others. Like when we like someone, what someone says or does, or don't like it, we will either want to be more like that or less like that, or we might be like, oh boy, I'm like that. And do I like that, or don't I like that about myself? Or, anyways. So it's opposite, Mars is opposite the North Node and Chiron in Aries, right? So this will create situations that resurrect the trauma and pain from our past that really calls us into question about like how and where we stand up for ourselves and in what way, and are we fearlessly in our truth or reacting, So it's going to be resurrecting this trauma and pain from our past, and it's going to show us where we're grasping and holding on too tightly and where we are also avoiding, because grasping and avoiding create the same sort of blockage and loop and like the kind of same hamster wheel of like stories happening over and over again. And when we release and surrender and let energy flow, that the energy becomes unblocked and things can just kind of fall off our backs, So Pluto squaring the North Node is going to help us with this transformation and help us through this resurrection process, through this healing process. Anyone in particular with planets 27 degrees, especially in an Earth sign, is really going to be feeling this evolutionary force, like pretty distinctly, I'd say. We are really being called to shift our relationships with others, with groups of people. We are really being able to call to communicate in a healthy way, to be compassionate to other people, to be able to work together in groups, because really groups, communities, that's going to be the way forward. I really think, actually. So real quick, if you're enjoying this video, I'd be so grateful if you hit that like button, subscribed, or made a donation to my channel, or shared this video with your friends. This is my heart's work. I love doing this. I love astrology. I love tarot, and I love motivating and inspiring people and empowering people with what's going on in working with the planetary forces, the energy that's going around them. So it really goes a long way, just even if you just hit the like button or share with a friend, it's super helpful for my growth and making this work my full-time job. So anyways, thank you. Anyways, on top of all this, Venus is squaring Uranus in Taurus, indicating a sudden and likely uncomfortable shakeup and shift in values, relationships, and home. So for any of you with Venus transiting through the 5th and maybe 7th or 8th houses, there might be some really big transformations in your relationship, like your actual like love relationships. But see where that's happening in your chart. And if you don't know, you're welcome to reach out to me. Anyways, given all this fiery energy, maybe you've been feeling extra spicy or irritated or annoyed or critical or judgmental of other people recently. Or maybe conflict is finding you and you've had people come at you seemingly out of nowhere. Whether we intentionally or unintentionally offend or steamroll people, the outcome is the same. negativity and distance between us, which is the opposite of love. Think of passing somebody with their brights on at night when you're driving. Like maybe you almost went off the road because they were doing that. You were blinded for a second. Maybe it was intentional. Maybe they were just like, "Oh, screw it, I'm not going to turn it off." Or maybe it was unintentional, like do 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 do. But either way, the outcome is the same. You're pissed. You almost died. We all have a need to be seen and cared for our wants and needs to be taken into consideration. And so we must offer that same consideration to others. We have to begin to operate from the knowledge that our way is not the only way. And even if it's the best way, in your opinion, that relationships are more important than being right. Like that saying goes, do you want to be right or do you want to be in relationship? The other thing is we really can't control anything or anyone outside of ourselves. So getting worked up about what other people are doing is really a waste of energy and takes away from our enjoyable and productive experiences. Like really. And for those of you who are like, well, what if they're doing this or that, or just nitpicking what I just said, this is probably a good opportunity for you to reflect on what's coming up for you right now and think, where is this coming from? Of course, there are times where we really do need to stand up for our needs and wants. For some of us, learning to actually assert our opinion is the lesson this full moon. Likewise, if you've been on the receiving end of someone's ire, potentially you've been oblivious to their wants and needs also. Of course, it is up to everyone to learn to lovingly communicate their wants and needs, especially as adults. But we also have some responsibility to discover other people's needs and boundaries as well. Like when you go to someone's house, you ask before you just walk in, is this a shoes on or shoes off house? Or can I bring my dog before you bring your dog? Or can I bring so-and-so before you actually bring someone else? You don't know if they've made enough food for everyone or if these people get along or whether the person just wants to have one-on-one time with you. Like it's just being thoughtful, being considerate of other people's ways and needs of doing things. So not asking can lead to division and strife within a relationship, and people can get really offended. You never know how people feel about having shoes on in their house. Or maybe they care a little bit, maybe they care a lot of it, maybe they don't care at all. But it's always just good to ask. So actually, I guess the lesson for all of us is how and when to stand in our truth in a healthy and boundaried way. Mercury in Virgo is trining Uranus and Pluto, meaning we need to really transform our thoughts and habits. This means objectively evaluating the thoughts that run through our head, our judgments, our perceptions and opinions, and training ourselves to be more considerate and thoughtful of others. It also means learning to communicate our boundaries fearlessly and lovingly. It can be so hard, especially if you know someone's not going to react well, to share your boundaries. But it's important for us all to be able to be in them. And then when others share them with us, to be in that place of gratitude. Thank you for sharing your boundaries with me. Thank you for your no. Thank you for showing me how I can love you more and make your life more wonderful. You know, learning to give and receive boundaries is really like adult varsity level work, but something we all should really learn to do, right? So the key lies in the way that we think and communicate, and it's up to us to actually observe our thoughts and notice when we are being overly concerned with the outcome occurring the way that we want it to. And also just getting curious about why it matters so much to us that it happens this way. Or why it matters so much that they're doing it like this or doing this or that. The Sufis have this really profound saying for things that I really love. And it's just, so what? You know, if it's like the things that we get upset about or suffer from, like mostly like don't actually directly affect us. It's us choosing to be critical of other people, or maybe it affects us but in just some small and like insignificant way. And listen, I am not immune from this. So I'm not lecturing you guys. This is all realizations that I've had about this full moon, and they're lessons for me just as much, right? So we also have to learn to distinguish between our opinions and facts, and notice when we are making up stories about other people's intentions and motivations. Even if we are right, which is possible, it's important to give people the benefit of the doubt and like the opportunity to explain themselves, and ask them to clarify from a place of curiosity instead of judgment. Like, why did you do that? Be like, oh, I'm just curious about what made you do that? See the difference there? So finally, we need to learn more empathy and compassion for ourselves and each other. So we have every one of us experience trauma that has shaped our thinking, our goals, our motivations, and behavior in this life. Perhaps you grew up in a chaotic household, and now the fear of losing control is closely linked to your survival. Like you feel like you will die or things will just get way too out of control if you don't happen a certain way. That's real. Maybe you feel like if you don't stand up for yourself, no one will. And then your opinion will never get seen or heard, or no one will take care of you. And so you really have to be looking out for yourself, right? Maybe you've only experienced abusive relationships and you don't trust yourself or your heart to make good decisions. So you place limits and restrictions on what's acceptable and how it needs to look, so help you feel more control so that things turn out good. Perhaps you feel if things are done in a different way than what you think, that they will fail and everything will be ruined. Or perhaps if someone else's way works, then people will lose respect for you, like you need to be the best, or the number one, because if you're not, then you're last or something, it's just a matter of perspective. So, but notice everything that I just said. Notice the need for control often comes from a place of fear, and fear is the opposite of love. Say it with me now. Fear is the opposite of love. So this full moon, just try and notice your decision making, and whether the decisions that you're making or the thoughts that you have, are they coming from a place of fear or are they coming from a place of love? Like what fills your heart up? Like how can you go about your day where you're making decisions that are loving decisions for yourself and for others? When it comes down to it, we all just want to be happy and feel connected. And the world is a much better place when we work together and have compassion and empathy for each other's experiences. It's really what the world needs right now. The world needs us all to be fully in our power and our strength in our own hearts, shining our light, and also lifting each other up, caring about each other, not being like, oh, too bad for that person. My family's taken care of. I just need to worry about me and my people. Like, it's like, that's not the way. That is not the way. And I won't get into it, but please, if you can, try and cultivate some compassion and empathy for yourself and others. So again, if you enjoyed this video, I'd be so, so, so grateful if you liked, if you shared with your friends, if you subscribed to my channel or considered making a donation. It takes really so much work to make a video, so much more work than I ever imagined. And it really takes me like at least a full day to get everything ready. I know it doesn't seem like it because of how I'm not very good at it, but it really does. So anyways, your support really goes a long way in helping me to create content, to know that I'm on the right path and doing the right thing. So even just a like really goes a long way. Again, I'm also available for readings, tarot, and astrology. You can reach out to me on Instagram at mysticmaude, or my website, mysticmaude.com, or email me. And again, all that stuff will be in the descriptions. And I hope that you have the most bestest full moon in Aries. see you in a couple weeks for the new moon in Libra.